Hi everyone. Let me just do a sound check. Make sure you can hear me. Okay, I'm not hearing anything coming through. Oh, there we go. Sometimes it just doesn't want to come out. All right. But I do hear it, and that's great. All right. So thank you for tuning in today. It's me, Flower Child 567. You are tuning in to the Flower Kisma Twitch channel today, and I am the streamer here, but I'm doing things a little differently right now. And instead of streaming in a game, I'm narrating my novel series, and I am currently reading book 1 of the Faery-Chronicles. The book I'm reading is Fairy with Teeth, and I do anticipate that we will complete this novel next Thursday. So I hope you have been enjoying it as much as I have been enjoying reading it to you. So I want to start off by just saying thank you to those of you who do tune in and who do lurk, or who do comment, or who watch the rerun. I'm always amazed at the individuals who will actually take time to watch the rerun. I have made a decision that after next week, or maybe even starting next week, because this Saturday marks August, we go into the month of August, that perhaps I will begin a weekly stream, just once a week, streaming Palia, just life in Palia, my experiences and journey and questing and all of that good stuff. I think that could be fun. And then, of course, I'll take a week or two break, and then towards the latter part of August, I will begin reading book 2 of the Faery-Chronicles. Welcome to Palia, and welcome to my beautiful avatar wearing the new outfit that we have for the beauty and the beach. And I'm going to do a little dance for you. Here we go. I don't know if you can hear it. Isn't that just enchanting? Anyways, I really love this game, and I'm so dramatic right now. I'm going to take you back into a section of my new land. This is the, I don't know what land it's called. It doesn't really matter, but I thought it would be sweet to just stand up here and let you gaze out upon the landscape and see the mountains and everything. And of course, be able to see me, Miss Dramatica. So I'll be scanning this from start to finish. We'll start right here. And without further ado, let us begin the story Fairy with Teeth, Book 1 of the Faery-Chronicles, resuming reading on page 323, the chapter Maka's Flame. Anger spread through Vivian. She rose to her feet and with fisted hands climbed to the top of the fairy mound. "What do you want?" she asked through gritted teeth. "Stop messing with me. I have always freely given myself to you in service, always perform the assignments you give me, or at least I think I do. I try to." She turned in a circle, eyes wide and angry, searching the night darkness for a sign. "I no longer understand any of this. I don't understand why Kian and I were brought together to feel such pain, such anger toward one another. What do you want?" Fairy Chronicle entry 2.666.4. I turned to Fairy. He had come from the mound when the argument between Vivian and Kian began. He gave a nod of his head, our eyes communicating an unspoken agreement to each other. Without hesitation, I stepped before Vivian, giving her the gift of fairy sight. She watched, almost horrified, as my luminescent image began to take shape before her, although I did not manifest as a human or in a human shape, but remained a column of light that appeared to be evaporating near the edges, forming into tiny, colorful spheres. Vivian involuntarily raised her hand to her mouth, her eyes growing wide. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Come," I beckoned, as Fairy opened the doorway into the mound. What Vivian saw was a golden yellow light flaring out from a hole in the top of the mound. "But who are you?" she asked again, jerking her head, her focus from the mound opening back to my form. "An alley. Come." Fairy stood in the light, a small shape, a shadow really. He held out his hand to Vivian. "Come," he said, "I am a guide." Hesitantly, Vivian stepped forward, and with that one step she felt the release of physical burden, heard a thud beneath her, and felt a lightening of spirit. With the next step she was close enough to the Balkan to take his hand, and as she did she saw her own hand become white and iridescent. In one swift movement, Fairy turned, stepped through the veil, pulling Vivian with him into our world. As the opening closed, taking the golden yellow earthlight with it, the faint outline of a body could be seen recumbent on the mound. Through the twisting and turning caused by entry into our realm, Vivian's conscious hold on reality was ripped asunder. She had to let go to shift into another state of attention, of awareness. Several times during the passage, her toe twitched at the line of sanity, and each time she faltered. Fairy gripped her hand tightly. His firmness, the pressure of his hand, acting as an anchor, as a ground line for Vivian. Vivian's vision blurred, and all became darkness. "Bonba!" a man's voice called out. Vivian jerked around. She stood on the mound, on the far side of the mound. A man stood at the base of it. She peered down at him, squinting to make out his face. "Kian?" she asked. "Who?" he asked, and then, "Bonba, is that you, love? 'Tis your husband, McCool. Did you not call me awake? I was sound asleep and having a wonderful dream I was. I was hunting with me two brothers, and just as I was pulling back my arm to let fly my spear at the backside of a mighty stag, there came the sound of your voice, and I woke up." McCool climbed the hill and stood beside Vivian. She gasped, when she saw his face, not unlike that of Cian's, but full-bearded and bright blue-eyed. His eyes twinkled as they looked upon her, and a warm smile spread across his lips as he glanced around the area. "Ah, Banva, 'tis you who called me your side, to the top of a she, no less. What did you have in mind, me wife?" He looped his arm around her waist and pulled Vivian to him, grinning down at her startled face. "You look as you did on our wedding night," he said, and hooted. "Shall we give the land of mortal women an infusion?" "Lovely Banba, you look a bit different to me this night." He gave a shrug, and not waiting for her reply, covered Vivian's mouth with his own. In one fell swoop, he gathered her up in his arms and carried her to the base of the mound, where he gently lowered her to the ground and came down upon his knees beside her. He stared down at her face, at her wavy hair spread around her head like a halo, and grinned, then bent and kissed her again, deeply and fully. He crushed the fullness of her breasts under his chest as he came down upon her. She was his fairy goddess, always would be. Vivian moaned and wrapped her arms around his neck. "I am," she began, her moist lips pressed against his ear. But before Vivian could confess that she was not Banba, Mukul pressed his finger against her lips. "Shh, shh, shh," he urged, running his hand along the length of her torso and pulling up the bottom of her skirt. "Ye are me fairy wife, Banba, awake and alive, just as I, your husband, am now awake and alive before you. Little time have we to commune." The night air felt cold against Vivian's thighs as he pushed the material of her skirt to one side, exposing her skin. He slid his hand along her inner thigh. "Oh, Banva," he groaned in response to Vivian's gasp, and buried his face against her neck. He took little bites, tasting her skin with the tip of his tongue. The wetness between her legs feeling smooth and satiny on his fingers. She wrapped her arms around his neck and pressed against him. His warm hand slid under her sweater and cupped one of her breasts, gently squeezing the nipple. Mukul raised up on one elbow and looked down at her. His eyes lingered on her face, taking in her features. Then he lowered as he pushed the sweater up so he could see the fullness of her. Oh yes, an X-rated scene soon followed. Above, the stars glittered, and the blackness of the heavens drew Vivian in. She suddenly felt infinite, as if she was a player in a great mystery drama and was enacting a sacred bon fils, a sacred marriage of the land, the same archaic ritual that the ancient people of Ireland had participated in countless times. It was then that Vivian felt herself align with the spirit of Banba through the act of welcoming Mukul home, joining with him in some primordial dance. Vivian sensed Mukul would not be able to stop now. Neither of them would be able to until their spirit love had been reconsummated and Maka's flame ignited. The clinking of a metal buckle registered just as he lifted his head. He smiled, a glazed look in his eyes, pupils huge and dilated, his lips red and swollen. She brought her hand to the side of his face, her finger caressing the softness of his lips. He sucked the tips of her fingers into his mouth and flicked his tongue against them. Lifting slightly, he pushed, he groaned, he plunged inside his wife, who lifted to receive him. And he rode her, looking down on her body, her face, the ecstasy reflected in her glazed eyes, those green eyes yearning for more. She was his, completely and utterly his now, and he would take her for as long as he was allowed to take her, love her for as long as he was allowed to love her. She gasped as McCool thrust, conquering her. She pulled him down, searching for his mouth, his tongue, which she sucked, her eyes open and peering into his. She raised to meet him, holding him. She dug her fingers into his skin as the sensation overwhelmed her, shooting through her as she convulsed. And he moaned, pushing deep, so deep, releasing so fast. All movement became internal, a sensation igniting every inch of their awareness until complete stillness captured them in its silky arms, and they lay exhausted, a rage and flame, totally and utterly fulfilled. McCool lifted onto his elbow and smiled into her eyes, then planted little kisses on the tip of her nose, eyelids, and forehead, while gently smoothing back her hair. "You are so beautiful, Bonba," he whispered. "Who are you really?" "Your fantasy," she sighed, lifting her head to kiss his mouth. "You don't suppose we've been husband and wife since the beginning of time, do you?" he asked tenderly. "Maybe that's why you've taken the wind out of me sails," he said, offering her a fragile smile. "You're me spirit wife." He studied her eyes, her face, then lifted up so that his expended unit fell from her before shifting his body weight off her. He gazed upon her, upon the forbidden fruit, upon the fir mound. He adoringly looked at the fullness of her breasts, gently caressing them with his hand. "Me fairy and mortal wife," he said softly, bending to kiss her before pulling her sweater down over them. Just as gently he smoothed her skirt over her legs, then reached for the lacy wad he'd carefully pulled off her and shoved aside. He fingered the panties, shaking them out so he could see what she wore, and smiled as he breathed them in, relishing the level of intimacy with her. "I'd keep these if I thought I could," he said, grinning as he handed her back her undergarment. She took them and placed them beside her, then reached up and stroked the side of his face. "How am I ever going to survive this?" Vivian asked. Not expecting an answer, she lifted her eyes back to his. "No regrets," he stated, lowering his lips to her mouth to share another deep kiss, to exploit the remaining time they had left together before the alarm clock rang and she was forced to wake from the dream. They lay entwined in each other's arms as lovers throughout all time have done after the violent and angry act of consuming each other has been initiated and fulfilled and shared again. It was then that they communed as beloveds, eyes greedily holding on to one another, hands endlessly caressing skin and hair, words whispered on the breath of ecstasy, and it wasn't until the sharp cold of the dawn succeeded in thawing the furnace of their love and bit into skin that they roused from their bed of the beloveds. They shared one final enraptured kiss before McCool urged Bonva to her feet. They walked arm in arm to the top of the mound, stopping to gaze upon the dawn. He turned and tilted her head up to his, their eyes meeting, warm smiles forming on their lips. "Time for me to sleep again," he whispered, kissing the tip of her nose. "And time for you to wake up, sleepyhead. Wake up, sleepyhead." Vivian bolted upright, looking wildly about her body, erupting into violent spasms from both the early morning cold and shock of where she found herself. Her hands automatically fumbled at her disheveled skirt, pushing it down to cover her legs as she brought her knees to her chest, wrapping her arms around them and rocked. Her mind twisted and turned with thoughts, fear that it hadn't been just a dream, fear that Cian had come back to her and they had made love over and over again under the delusion that they were both awakened fairy, fear that she was losing her mind. "Oh God, Justin," she whimpered, burying her face into her arms, choking back the scream that threatened to unleash. As she closed her eyes and swallowed, a calmness began to seep through her, seeping up from the cold, hard earth beneath her. And with it came a voice, the recognized voice of the fairy ally, soft and reassuring, as if reading a story to her. For the time their love became at once so great and so frail that behind the privacy of her eyes, at the same time, it both appalled and uplifted her. Given life to their love had created an unfathomable mystery within her heart, opened a doorway into the deepest part of her soul, an inner awakening that what had just happened had always been destined to happen. She knew that though it had led her to the stars, it would also lead her into an abyss, that there was a limit set to her mortal joy, that her mortal suffering would be just as great. This love of theirs had grown into an enormous flame that could and would overleap itself in one as in the other, and she dreaded the mystery of such an overwhelming love, a love that was destined to see its death through its own flame. The flame Maka had kindled in their hearts would be understood by only a few. To most it would be viewed as forbidden, and to those who understood, though, it would be at once as real and as unreal as the misty foam spreading along a shoreline in the early dawn. To some their love would be seen as no more than the phosphorescence of emotion, a violation of mortal virtue. A quiet breeze ruffled Vivian's hair. She lifted her face when the voice stopped and realized that she was surrounded by the magic of fairy. She slipped her hand beneath her skirt and felt the wetness on the crotch of her panties. Whether she just hers or that of her phantom lover didn't matter. What mattered was that she felt certain nothing had happened between her and Cian. He had not returned to her at the mound, had not lay with her and consummated their soul love. He was who he had always been from the start, Cian, just Cian, and whether or not she ever worked with him again, Vivian knew that her work was not yet complete. She also knew that he had said the things he did to her the night before out of pain, the pain of rejection. On some deep level, Cian had believed she would leave her husband for him, and Vivian sensed that had she said she would do just that, Cian would not have hesitated leaving his wife for her. A heavy sigh slipped from Vivian, but that wasn't what this was all about. She shook her head, lifting her eyes to the top of the mound and catching a glimmer of something. She wasn't alone, just as she suspected. No, she was a fairy-favored mortal, and though that thought caused a breath in her throat, she knew that it was only just beginning. Slowly and stiffly, Vivian got to her feet. She turned as if to go back to the farmhouse, but paused, her attention going to the hawthorn tree. Funny, but she was sure a woman was standing beside it. Vivian smiled to herself and bowed her head toward the tree. "For you," she said, and not bothering to raise her eyes back to the tree, she left the fairy haunt. Faery-Chronicle entry 2.66.5. Fairy withdrew into the mound, and Maka stepped away from the hawthorn tree to stand in the warmth of the indented grass where Vivian had lay, satisfaction showing on her countenance. Maka took a deep breath, faced the rising sun, and raising her arms to it in salutation, evaporated into a shimmering of sparkles. "Ah," I sighed. I had been holding me breath, unsure if Maka would reprimand me for me trespassing, but Maka was known to turn a blind eye to such meddling when and if it served her purpose. I took a deep breath, pleased that I had been found of use to the great queen. As I surveyed the mound and the surrounding area, I noticed that a new shine clung to the landscape, and that bubbles of energy bounced around the plants in the garden. There was an edge of sharpness to the new budding light of day. And as the sunlight crept around the curve of the planet, Makol and Banba had awakened. The Bon Fees had been enacted, a union of polarity accomplished. Now, the only uncertainty was that of the encroaching darkness, and if Lou's mounting rage could be pacified. All right. Chapter 1 of today's reading. I should have mentioned at the beginning of reading that chapter that it was a little X-rated and might offend some people's sensibilities. Oh well. I think I'll do another dance right here. Let's see, I'll come more over here so I don't go off the side into the water. I just love this game. Let's go down here and find another location to read the next chapter. Oh, how enchanting. Rapunzel's castle? Well, not really. Cinderella's chariot? Well, not really. But Petals? Petals' life? Yes, really. All right, let's continue with the next chapter for today. Page 333. Lou's rage. Faery-Chronicle entry 2.777.1. She trespassed, accused Lou, his bright blue eyes sharpened on me. She broke the law and must receive just retribution. I demand Eric. A gasp spread through the hall. All eyes turned into Maka, who kept her gaze lowered. I shuddered at the thought of such a judgment. Lou's past Eric's were known to be heavy, and he was known to freely use druidic spells to ensure the demise of his opponent. I thought of the fate the sons of Turin had met and shuddered. Maka lifted her eyes to me face. We held each other's gaze. She gave me a smile, then looked to the sun god, whose own misery weighed down his shoulders as if it were a heavy burden carried on his back. Ildenach, she said, using his ancient title. Why do you seek to destroy a kin? Lou glanced at me as he rose from his chair and strode to stand directly before Maka. This may be your time of rule, good queen, he said, showing respect. In Dadamore placed the laws over our hosts with all our consent. Did we not all vow to uphold such laws to find order and balance between our realm and that of the land of mortal women? Maka nodded her head. What you say is true, Lou Lamfada. This I nor any of our clan can repudiate. What I ask you to consider is the degree of trespassing. A fairy intervention is not a crime worthy of disembodiment. Shunned into the netherworld, never to return to our realms on Earthside as long as mortal time exists. Is that what you want? You want to choose this for this one? She pointed at me. I met Lou's gaze as it fell on me and held it, not wanting to look away or show any sign of cowardice or remorse. A heavy sigh lifted Lou's shoulders. He crossed the room to me. I had to lift my face to continue to hold his gaze, and squared my shoulders, preparing for the worst. But after a short pause, Lou frowned and gave a curt laugh. "Ye have fallen in love with this mortal," he said in wonder. "As you have," I responded. He seemed to ponder my words and glanced away, his eyes searching the air for some answer or solution. "Lou," said Anya, disengaging from the crowd and coming to stand by his side. "Lou, just as you have, did you not hear?" She gave him her loveliest smile of summer, her grey eyes imploring him to come to his senses. Lou focused on Anya, then her words reaching him, seizing her chance to calm his rage. Anya gingerly laid her hand on his arm. "Ar's an end," she said, glancing into my face. "Love Spanva just as tenderly as you do. We all should have expected this to happen." Anya turned and faced the host. "We know the consequences of standing as an ally to a mortal. Have we not each had such an assignment?" she asked, turning back to Lou. "To be a witness, to watch, wait, every breath expended around the mortal, each thought wrapped around what the mortal will do next, seeing her or his dilemma, the mental battle that inevitably rages through their minds." A murmur shot through the hall. Maka raised her hand for silence. Anya continued. "We she hold no human emotion within us. We are callous most of the time, careless toward the human condition, selecting women and men to perform for us, and when they fail, they are discarded. Our backs are turned to them as off we go to manipulate the next pawn to do our work earthside." Her eyes rested on Maka. "It's a hard propensity ours," Maka said in response, "but each of us at one time or another comes under the influence of human emotion, that of love," Ani stressed. "Is that not what we lack and crave in our own realm?" Not so, interrupted me dear. Elaine and I share love. This is true, replied Annie, but my dear lord, you wooed Eton away from the land of mortal women, and in doing so came to know love. She speaks the truth, acknowledged Elaine. A silence fell in the hall. All eyes focused back on Lou, waiting for his response, his position, and in the awkward silence I knew that it was time to speak. I am here today, I began, in this majestic court, one of the living hosts, only because one of our kind took pity on the mortal in whom I was awakening. Had McCall not intervened, not trespassed, not manipulated the mortal woman named Miranda, my spirit would still lay sleeping. Vivian was wavering. She was in the process of turning her back on our work because of her dilemma over love. She loves her mortal husband and child more, I stressed, than she loves Cian, or us for that matter. I searched Lou's face, the coldness in his eyes, the uncertainty dawning in them. My son God, it is to you I kneel, I said, honouring him by going down onto my knees. And I too wish for the mortal to awaken the sleeper. I too wish for Bonva to live among us again. My trespassing this night in guiding Vivian to awaken McCool, to bring their two spirits together, to commune as husband and wife, was what was required in order for Vivian to securely align with the spirit of Bonba. Only now is she capable of awakening Bonba's spirit, if she chooses to do so. Maka stood, her glorious image filling all our eyes with delight. A warm smile rested on her lips. Sinind, rise, she said to me. Then to Lou she extended her hand. Come to me, she said. Lou did as he was bid and went to Maka, taking her offered hand. Had you been allowed to join with Vivian, our cause would surely have been lost, and that woman's mind pressed asunder. She would have come into fairyland, yes, but not as Bonba, but rather as a stolen child. Mortal can only dwell in our country for a year and a day before they fade away, becoming a waif of their former self. Surely you know that. Had her discarded body left Earthside not been kept alive, but allowed to die and be buried in the earth, then she would have become a trapped soul, a wretched ghost, haunting the wayside places, the dreams of the innocent. Is this what you would have wanted for Vivian? For Bonba? Lou lowered his head, shaking it. We are not little creatures with gossamer wings, those little nature spirits that most humans mistakenly call fairies. Maka counselled, reminding us of the false image humans insisted on holding for us, the large percentage of them having no clue who or what we were. We are the gods and goddesses of the stars. We are deified spirits, she said, too rude and magnificent to be understood by the mass human consciousness. They're not capable of recognizing their starseed origin in us, but choose to denigrate us to nature spirits the size of a ball. The hall echoed with laughter, which is precisely the reason why we keep to the heart center of this planet rather than roam the earth, revealing ourselves in other lands. Maka pushed a golden ringlet away from her face and gave a stout laugh. Let them believe what they will, mistaking those crazy little nature creatures as us. In supporting their illusion, we remain untapped, free to manage the realms. Could you imagine what it would be like if we had all these humans calling on us to come heal them every 2 seconds? Again, laughter erupted, but this time even Lou joined in, which greatly relaxed me. I offered him a smile when his blue eyes glanced at me, and again felt relieved when he gave me a tight-lipped smile, followed by a curt nod of his head. Besides, Ildenak, said Maka, her voice suddenly serious, her eyes narrowed in Pearson. Once Bonba is awakened, you will have the opportunity to go to her. There is no assurance that McCall will still hold sway over her in this age. Their time was in the past. Perhaps your time together will come at last. A murmur of surprise spread through the hall, and a look of wonder washed over Lou's face, replacing the darkness of his countenance with new hope. However, Maka said, silence in the ruckus, there is still an evil loose in the heart center of this world, and if allowed to grow will consume this world and the minds and hearts of humankind, bringing ruin and desolation to this planet. Our work is still ahead of us. We still have great battles ahead of us, and success can only come through the willingness of mortals to do our work earthside. We may only battle earthside when called upon by them, and of course, when and if such evil attempts to encroach upon our realms. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. Let me take a peek here. Well, I'm not sure what's going on here. Somebody got banned. Let's take a look. A message was deleted from DKZX015. Sounds like a bot to me. Okay, that's probably why it was deleted. Right. That's okay. I'm okay with that. All right, so let me continue. I need to take a whistle. I need to wet my whistle. That's so old-fashioned to say that, isn't it? But every storyteller knows that. I have one more chapter to read today. This is called The Integration, and it's on page 338. Ken gritted his teeth. He could feel the process beginning, a sense of vertigo and anxiety clamping a tight grip over his head and chest. Each breath became labored as he gulped for air. Ken, hurry up, said Ellen, knocking on the bathroom door. I'd like to use the bathroom before we go down to breakfast. All right, he growled. Give me a minute. He peered at himself in the mirror. Twice now he had succeeded in getting the upper hand. He had succeeded, winning the battle, averting a full-blown attack, but this morning, it was difficult. He felt a loss of pressure on the top of his head. It almost felt like it was going to pop right off. He lowered his head so he could see the top of it in the mirror and felt a stabbing pain in his chest. God damn it, he groaned, his hands automatically clutching at his chest. What the hell is going on? His legs buckled and he went down. He leaned against the sink cabinet and closed his eyes. The image of an old man flashed in his mind, and he thought he heard the sound of laughter. His eyes popped open. Something wasn't right. In fact, he hadn't felt right since he and Ellen found that damn cave. He broke out in a cold sweat and began shivering. "Mine!" Ken heard the voice inside his head. "All mine! Time for you to take a back seat." He clamped his hands over his ears in an attempt to silence the voice. "Scoot on now," said the voice, followed by laughter. The hairs on the back of Ken's neck stood on end, and goosebumps raised on his arms. "Get out!" the voice shouted. Ken scrambled to his feet. "Ellen!" he shouted, pulled open the door, and bolted out of the bathroom, almost knocking Ellen over. "Stop the voice!" he begged her, eyes frantic. "Stop the voice!" He grabbed his head and fell onto the bed. Ellen found the prescription bottle, popped off the lid, and poured 2 tablets in her hand. She shoved the tablets in Ken's mouth and reached for a water bottle sitting on the nightstand. "Drink!" she ordered. When 30 minutes had passed and Ken was still complaining of pressure and a voice inside his head, Ellen forced 2 more tablets down him. Within another 30 minutes, she gave him 2 more. Finally, after 6 pills, Ken had finally quieted, but now lay passed out. In the room down the hall, Marcella was experiencing her own situation with Steve, who had begun vomiting, having diarrhea, and running a fever. Becoming frantic, Marcella found Mrs. McEwen, who drove the couple to a nearby hospital where Steve was diagnosed with possible food poisoning. The doctor gave Marcella medications to help control the vomiting and diarrhea and sent them back to the B&B with Mrs. McEwen. Once Marcella administered Steve his medications and got him tucked into bed, she headed for the telephone and ran into Ellen in the hallway. Are you okay, Ellen?" Marcella asked, her own nerves frazzled. "No," Ellen confided. "Ken had a full-blown anxiety attack this morning and is so heavily seduced that he's passed out." "We just got back from the hospital," said Marcella. "Steve has food poisoning." The 2 women stared at each other in alarm. Oh, yes. All right. That's all I'm reading for today. Next week, we only have a few more chapters left, and we will continue on page 340 with the last day. And I will continue reading until we get to the end of the book. I think it'll definitely be a full hour. Maybe just a little over an hour. So just be prepared for that if you're going to come and hang out with me. Well, okay, so I guess let me do a farewell dance for you. You ready? Are you ready? Here we go. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for watching, listening. I appreciate you. I'll be here next week, same time, same channel. Bye for now.